Hey, hi there, guys. Good morning. Warren here. Today, I want to talk about melancholy, being melancholy, and why it could be problematic. And it's much different from depression. Melancholy is just that quiet, reflective sadness. Whereas depression is hopelessness, like always, constant. That's the word. Hopelessness, meaninglessness, clinical condition. Which can be debilitating, but I want to talk about it. It's not a bad context in terms of why I said it could be a problem, but I want to talk about it more in the good and why we need to control it. How about that? And bear with me, it's probably going to be a longer episode than I want it to be, but I don't want to rob you of my thinking on it, and I think it might go longer than I normally go. And if you have to go, I mean, your time is precious. I'm already fortunate you're spending some with me. So if you have to go, by all means, but bear with me. But yeah, I mean, we all do it. That's another thing, is that we all do it. Medical psychology says it's how we're reflective. I mean, there is the word sadness attached to it, but we reflect over things like loss, change, meaning, when we're questioning the meaning of life, time, and our identity. The good things, because they can be, again, not like depression, all right? But that's the why we do it. And the word came from the Greek physician Hippocrates, while he was trying to figure out, using four humors to figure out temperament. And melancholy came from melas, which means black, and chol, which means bile. So black bile is melancholy, and it's associated with sadness and reflection and even intellect. But like everything else, we can do too much of it. We can revisit our past, and like I like to say, we shouldn't take baggage with us when we go back. All right, it should be a two-way ticket, and it's only to go be reflective and not for residence. That's why no bags. All right, two-way ticket, no bags, because it's not a place of residence. It's a place of reflection. But we all do it, and some of us dwell more so than others, and we can still think clearly. We can function in life. Like, I think there's a channel out there, I might get its name wrong, but I subscribe to Function in Melancholy. You can function, but it carries an air of deeper thinking that can look excessively like sadness. And when I was thinking about it, I thought about it in the context, ironically enough, I mentioned one of the things that we do ruminate about when we're being melancholy is time. And that is the irony that I kind of want to focus on, because while we're doing that, how much of it are we really losing? And I would argue that it's a lot more than we think, actually. And I want to use a climber's analogy to kind of make the point. Let's say a climber is anchored at a specific point on the rock, and they ascend 10 feet. And accidentally they fall. Now, they're not falling just the 10 feet that they ascended. You have to calculate for the rope. So they're falling an additional maybe 5 or 10 feet, right? So instead of only the 10 they ascended, they're now at 15 or 20 is the fall. And it's the same thing with when we spend too much time being melancholic. Because if we go back, let's say 5 years, if we're melancholy for 5 years, and there are people who are, always is a strong word, but very often, a lot of times, are in a state of melancholy. So for those, and I'm kind of talking about me too until I woke up a little bit. Again, nothing wrong with it. But if, using my analogy, if you make that the everyday person who does this, and they're going back when they do, not when they do, but they're living their everyday in a state of this. And let's say it's 5 years that they've been doing this. Using my climber's analogy, in terms of time, the 5 years that you spent being in a melancholic state, you're not accounting for the 5 years, because a melancholic state is in a state of going backwards, right? You're not accounting for the 5 years lost where we should have been going forward. So it's now 10 years that you've really been in a state of melancholy. And that's a lot of time lost. But you would argue, you would say, Warren, you did say that some of the things that we're ruminating on when we are in that state of melancholy are good things, like change that might have worked out in a good way. Identity, learning ourselves through that state of deep reflection and critical thinking that occurs during a melancholic state. You did say that. True. But how much of that state do we need to stay in to continue to grow? Because you would argue that yes, growth is not static; it's constant. But balance, that would be my answer to you in simple form. Really, balance. We can go back. We can ruminate, especially on the things that we need to put into our kit bags to help us grow. And we can ruminate about the good things too. But I think staying in a state of melancholy all the time or often denies us going forward. Like my rope analogy, because now that climber has to climb not the 10 feet that they had ascended, but 15 or 20, depending on the length of their rope. And using the climber, if he or she continues to make errors and fall like we all do, it's a lot of time and effort to get to maybe a short distance because we keep reverting backwards to go forwards. But interestingly, I was ruminating about that. the weather has not been so cooperative in terms of what I like to call Bob, the big orange ball, the sun. It's been raining, and I was having coffee out on the porch watching the rain and being melancholic. I was being... And mine was a combination of questioning our absurd environment, and some was just as a kid when we used to make paper boats and race them in the runoffs. But so I was doing it too, and that's why I wanted to share it with you. I'm not sure how long I've gone. Probably not as long as I thought. I thought I would be longer. But when we're being melancholic, we feel like time expands, right? We feel like we have, dare I say, more of it. But in fact, our linear, like I've been saying, or progressive time shrinks because we keep going backwards. And it goes to another saying, what is it? Is it 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or 1 step forward and 2 steps back? Whichever it is, we do that. But our linear progressive time suffers because of that. And you might say, Warren, it's easy for you to say not to do that, because when the thoughts come, what do? And that slides over into Buddhism, Zen Buddhism specifically. They don't say not to or to block, hinder your thoughts. It's a misconception. That's not what meditation and being in control of our thoughts means. It means not to dwell on them as they come, not to fight them off, and not to dwell on them as they're passing, but to let them pass. And too often we dwell and we shrink our progressive forward time. But yes, we shouldn't dwell on when those thoughts come and you say, then what do? You let them come and you let them pass. You don't dwell, you just let them pass, and you don't fight them. And it's not easy. That's where the practice of meditation over time and mindfulness and presence comes in. But you don't fight them. They're gonna come. So the answer to your question of what happens when they come is they're going to. Just don't fight them. Don't. And then the thing we do when we do that too is we change the narrative. We change the story. Every time we do this recall, we edit the story. What is that called in psychology? I forgot. But yeah, every time we recall, we edit the story. And if it's something painful, based on our emotion at the time we're doing the recall, the circumstances at the time, the environment at the time we're doing the recall, we add more to it. So let's say it's trauma. That emotion becomes more traumatic. We make the story more traumatic to suit that situation. And that's not to undermine the trauma. I am not saying that, or that it's nefarious. It's just the way we're wired. So if we want less of that, my point is we shouldn't stay too long in a state of melancholy. It's good to revisit and to reflect that quiet, reflective sadness that is kind of the definition of melancholy. But just think of how much rope and time we're losing by not going forward. And I think in our growth, we can't not go back. We shouldn't not go back. Like I said, we just don't take any bags with you, all right? Two-way ticket. It's a place of reflection, not a place of residence, because we should go back, lest we forget. But I think in search of some lost time, we can make it up by not being so overly melancholy sometimes. And you're probably like, yeah, easy for you to say, or good luck with that. And it is hard. It is hard. Because the minute we get some quiet time, that is exactly what we want to do, again, because of how we're wired. But it's not a problem. It just needs to be controlled like everything else in our lives, all right? And that's all I wanted to share with you guys. I'm not even sure I was coherent there, but we'll see. Until our next conversation, though, you be good out there. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We'll talk again soon. See ya.